Silence. There was a week before the patch and I got a lot of ideas, so let's talk about them. Let's go over ascendancies first. I am absolutely going to play Martial Artist on League Start, specifically for the Hollow Form skill, which is just General's Cry from PoE 1. General's Cry is one of my favorite archetypes, as it combines the feeling of a trigger setup, but with melee attacks. It also auto-targets, so you can just be played mindlessly. I do wonder if it reuses some of the Mirage code from PoE 1, as it has some interesting interactions. I covered this in my old PoE 1 videos, but I'll summarize it here for you. Mirages are a proxy that will do an attack for you. They are their own entity, so effects like gain on kill or on hits don't work. This would mean hypothetically Killing Palm's charge on kill would not give you charges. This also means things that are limited per player trigger multiple times. For instance, in PoE 1, Earthquake has a limit of not being able to have multiple aftershocks on top of each other. But if you do it with Mirages, then each Mirage gets an aftershock. This is because they are their own entity and each have their own limit. Effects that give a buff to the player would give it to the Mirage, but they would despawn right after. This is mostly meaningless, but some effects fall on the ground instead. In PoE 1, this enabled an entire build around static strikes falling on the floor. I don't think this can be used in PoE 2 yet, but maybe in the future. Also, since the Mirage despawns after one attack, it has an interesting reaction with dual wielding. Some dual wield skills alternate what weapon they attack with, but since they despawn after one attack, only the first weapon hits. This would let you use a stat stick in your offhand with no downsides. This would only work with maces, but most mace skills attack at the same time, so I don't think this applies yet. All of this is assuming they reused the Mirage code. It's just as likely they remade it fresh and not have any of these previous quirks. In one of the build showcases, there is a clip where you see Hollow Form Mirages do not generate combo. That's a bit of evidence of them being their own entity. Some other things. This works with any melee skill as long as it's not channeled or sustained, or conditional. So maces, spears, quarterstaffs, and talismans. I plan to try out everything once I ascend, but in particular I want to try out Rolling Slam and Bear Slam. A lot of them depend on how it's implemented. They say they only attack once, so would that mean a full combo, or just one hit? Rapid Assault might be really good if it does the full attack. Put a bunch of spears in a boss and detonate it with something like Crossbow Explosive Shot. You can move while using this skill, but it's very slow. So I think either mobility support or getting reduced movement speed penalty on the tree is going to be mandatory. Now this skill does use power charges as optional juice, so we need a way to generate them. The video shows one way that's really good using combo. Culmination 2 gives 10 attack combo and A-list Chimes gives power charge per 4 combo, so 2 to 3 charges per attack. With the combo nodes this looks effective, but it needs a lineage gem and we have no clue how expensive that is. Fist of Stone did reveal a power charge on crit mod, but we don't know how rare that is. Also, other sources of that have a cooldown, so it's not as good as it looks. And more than likely Mirages won't be able to proc it. Personally, I think the best method would be another martial artist skill, Hollow Focus. This spawns 1 HP bells around you every few seconds. This has to be one of the more underrated skills of the monk. It's actually insanely strong once you know how it works. This won't be used for damage, it will do some, but it's there to proc on kill effects. It's always cullable, primed for stun, and always crits, so any of those effects work. There's quite a lot of supports that give buffs on call. We can get power charges from Killing Palm, or Wyvern's Devour, or Wing Blast. We can use Hand of Shayolo or Pounce and should be able to instantly proc a mark. Freezing and Voltaic Vark both explode for damage and give some elementals extra for a bit. Sniper's Mark would be a frenzy charge generator. This could also proc Herald, so you could have Herald effects in your boss fights. Coming Calamity might be a really good body armor for this. There's also a bit of life gain on kill on the tree, but I don't think it's worth getting. It comes in small amounts, like 1 or 2% per node. There is so much utility here that I can't really see myself passing it up. Less so for the next one, Hollow Residence. This one puts a bell in your back that does extra damage when you crit. First notice this is a cooldown skill with 3 charges, so you are proc rate limited. The damage isn't that high, and the range is small, focused around you. You basically have to be on top of the boss to hit with it. Also, talismans are banned for some reason, so we can't have any bear shenanigans. This does have the potential to be a sort of automatic proccing utility skill, like procs Blind Daze or other on-hit effects. But Hollow Focus could also do that if you needed to. This looks like a skip for me. It also doesn't really work well with Hollow Form because we want to stand away from the enemies and not close by them. The combo line has potential. Additional combo enables the A-list Chime's power charge tech from earlier. The reduced ES delay won't be much, as the recharge rate has been nerfed a lot, but it should make using ES smoother in general. Martial Master has potential for other builds to let you build combo with anything. The only real skill this enables is to let you use Bell with anything, probably really good for crossbows. But for the node everyone is talking about, Way of the Stonefists, this converts your gloves to have different mods. So what's going to happen on day 1 or 2, there's just going to be a full mod conversion list on PoEDB, and then we'll just use it as a reference. I would also like to remind you that Omen of Putrefaction exists. This Omen corrupts a rare and fills it full of Veil mods. You can get Abyss mods, but more than likely you'll just get normal mods. But with this, you should pretty easily be able to craft just any glove you want to get the basic mods this way. This is actually my favorite crafting method, so I'm going to use it a lot. They were cheap last league, but no guarantee it will stay the same. I am also looking forward to see how Facebreakers change through Stonefist. Now the last 2 nodes are filler nodes to me. Runic Meridians is just some rune sockets. Okay, I guess, but this ascendancy is stack. It's only really good if your build stacks certain runes, but there might be some new ones, so you never know. Now Way of the Mountain is just 15% more damage, and that's basically it. It does reduce damage that hits less than 30% of your life, but that's not what kills you in this game. You die to spike damage, and this does nothing to help you with that. It's also a stack system, so you have to generate it with freezes or stuns, but you consume it for each attack or attack you take. It feels like it would just be a lot of work and not much reward. But I'm all in on Martial Artist for this league. The build will be pure vibes, just figuring it out along the way. But enough about the good ascendancy, how about that bad one now? Yeah, I'm saying it. Spearwalker's bait. So there are 2 builds here, the Spirits and the Minions. Spirits basically have to all be taken at once, and they just kinda work in any attack projectile build. It doesn't really enable anything, it just kinda goes on top of an existing build. It should work fine, but why would you take this gimmick when you could just use the other ascendancies that already make that builds better? Deadeye is right there. I find the gimmick super boring. You just heard me yap about build theories and possibilities about one martial artist skill. This does none of that, it's just plug and play into old builds. Great if you're doing Lightning Arrow for the 6th time, I guess. As for taming bosses, please first consult this meme. If you actually look and watch the boss, you will know they all attack very, very slowly. They all have these massive windups and huge end lags, and that take around like 5 seconds to finish, while they just stand there. It's going to be almost useless during clear. I would like to remind you don't have a way to recall minions in this game. That boss is lagging behind you, still attacking something that died 3 seconds ago. Its only use is going to be during single target. I believe Jonathan mentioned that companion damage was buffed by 3 times. I would also like to remind you that 3 times 0 is 0. Now here's the real funny thing. In the showcase videos they often bounce around map tiers to make it look really powerful. But you can still see how much damage they're actually doing by looking at the DPS meter in the corner of the life bar. Now at the end of the minion showcase, you can see them struggling to do what looks like a T10 boss. The Spirit build right before this does double this damage in 2 hits, and the Martial Artist showcase shows them nuking Zest in seconds. Even in the showcase, this ascendancy sucks. But enough bullying minion players, let's get down to the builds. Outside of my vibes Martial Artist, I got 2 ideas going around in my head. First is Facebreakers, but not what you think. All the mods on that give stuff for unarmed mace attacks, but there is one that would work anywhere. The mod 1% more unarmed damage per 5 strength. And technically, Pathfinder's concoction skills are unarmed damage. At least, probably. It needs unarmed, it has an unarmed tag. I can't really tell for sure till the game is live, but there is a non-zero chance of strength stacking concoctions being a thing. If it doesn't count as unarmed damage, then this whole plan won't work. Right around the time my parry video came out, I saw a video by Kaltorak that showcased a potion parry build that looked really cool. It was rather effective and pretty cheap as well. This was actually going to be my fallback starter, but Martial Artist exists. Now he uses Shattering Concoction and goes to full cold damage. I would do something different. I do think all the concoction skills are underrated, and this could work with any of them, we just scale generic damage. None of them are supported in PoB, so they just all say 1 DPS. Actual damage has to be figured out in-game. I like the idea of Acidic Concoction. This one detonates poisons on an enemy, and poison can be automated with the use of Ravenous Swarm, or Gas Arrow on a swap. But I would just try out anything, since we scale generic attack damage. Although, the ranger area of the tree seems to have better access to elemental nodes than physical ones. Something to think about. The unique body armor Iron Grafts gives the Keystone Iron Grip. This changes strength's inherent bonus to projectile attack damage per strength. This is a weak body armor, but remember we have unique upping this league, so it'll be slightly less terrible. Hopefully there's a better way to get Iron Grip than this though. We could take it a bit further though. Iron Grasp also gives Iron Will, which gives spell damage from strength. This can be converted into attack damage via a Crown of Eyes. This lets us triple dip strength scaling, but we're using 3 uniques and no weapons. That's not a lot of room to get defenses or more strength. Also remember, we're not getting any health from strength, so we're going to be rather squishy. We could use a Varuna's Heroic Tragedy to get some ES scaling, but working in int gear would be a nightmare. But if we go this route, I think strength will come from the tree over gear. With just 500 strength alone, that becomes 500 increased projectile damage, 100% more damage, and 250% increased energy shield. This scales very strongly. Concoctions need a weapon set fully unarmed to use, which works really well because that means we can use mace skills as well as quarterstaff stuff on that weapon set. We do need to path the Hollow Palm, but it's not that bad and there's some good nodes along the way. Mace skills base damage is based on the face breakers, and the quarterstaff is based on gem levels, so we don't really need to go out of the way to scale it. We're just going to ignore the extra scaling on Hollow Palm, as we don't need attack speed or crit. There's also a lot of choices on what to use the other weapon set for. I mentioned Gas Arrow earlier, but Parry is also an option. It's just really flexible of what you can do. The only issue I have with this is that Pathfinder just kind of sucks right now. Outside of Way of the Warrior, there's really not much to take, and the movement speed penalty node got nerfed. And for my last build, it uses a bow that no one talks about, for good reason. It's a pretty crap bow. Be warned, this isn't really starter viable. Ironbound is a unique bow that gives block chance, skills-based damage on block chance, and has returning projectiles against pierced broken armor enemies. I am interested, but I have a lot of doubts. I like this item because it's sort of a puzzle that needs to be solved. Obviously it screams Warbringer, as you tend to see, as it buffs armor breaking as well as block chance. But even with Warbringer's 75% block chance, this is only a 300 DPS bow. We do have unique upping, but it would need to up a lot to make this worth the while. The big payoff of returning projectiles, which is effectively double damage, but with a 300 DPS bow that's still not enough. Bows go up to 1000 DPS with rares. Also, no gem levels, which is something we always have to remember about. It's even more particular if we look at the conditions. Armor breaking is physical damage, and the only physical damage bow skills that pierce are Spiral Volley and Snipe. Pierce is actually very easy to fix, as there is a noticeable on the south side of the tree that gives piercing to armor broken enemies. The bigger issue is fueling Spiral Volley with frenzy charges. Armor breaking is an endurance generator, so we could path all the way up to Residence and convert that, but that's pretty far. Alternatively, we can use Combat Frenzy, but then we need Pin. We could support our skills with Pin, but that would be questionably effective. Pin scales on damage, and once again, 300 DPS bow. Which leads to an alternative ascendancy choice of Tactician. Tactician has very strong pin buildup, as well as a node on the tree that breaks 50% armor on pin. I'm pretty sure this is scalable with armor break increases, but since we don't have 75% block, the bow damage now goes down to 210. This build would be a lot tankier and have better tree placement, but it feels like it would just be better with a rare bow instead of this. On further inspection, we don't actually need physical damage. Warbringer's armor break node is generic damage, and the node after that makes armor break scale all damage. But all this really does is enable the use of lightning arrow or ice shot. This also does need all 4 ascendancy points to work as a baseline. Definitely not a starter option, you're gonna need a lab carry. I do think Spiral Volley is the better skill, we just need a source of frenzies from somewhere. Power Charge has got a lot of extra sources, so there might be one for frenzies as well. Block is very easy to cap as long as you have a rear guard quiver. I don't really see a rare working out. Also, the armor scaling on the item isn't needed, you can cap block with just tree nodes. If we can fix the damage, this would actually be quite tanky of a build. Capped block at least, and Tactician build would go for the armor deflection nodes. I feel all hope lies in the ability to upgrade the bow into a good bow, which probably won't happen. So this one's going on the back burner, but I will keep an eye out for ways to buff it. I put some rough POBs for concoction and bow build in the description. Be warned, they are super rough, they're nowhere near polished. Both seem like builds that need to be played through to work out the kinks. And that's about all for this one. League start plan is Vives Martial Artist. There may or may not be a video on it, depending on if I find anything interesting.